The forecast said clear skies, but the mountain had other plans. Stranded, freezing, alone. His last hope was his dog. This wasn't a lost dog. This was a rescue mission. 1 hour later, and he wouldn't have survived. He wasn't trained to be a hero. He just loved his human. Jake had always trusted the mountains, not because they were predictable, but because he respected them. As an adventure photographer from Portland, he knew nature didn't forgive carelessness. Every trip began with planning, backups, and contingencies. That December morning seemed routine. The weather forecast showed clear skies, low wind, and only light snowfall later in the evening. Nothing dangerous, nothing urgent. Rocky watched from the driveway as Jake loaded his camera gear into the SUV. The German Shepherd's breath puffed white in the cold air, tail wagging slowly. At 3 years old, Rocky was strong, focused, and unusually calm. Jake had trained him from puppyhood. Simple commands at first, then more advanced wilderness habits. Stay close, watch footing, don't wander. In the outdoors, Rocky wasn't just a companion, he was another set of instincts. The drive toward the Cascade Mountains near Mount Baker felt peaceful. Snow clung to the trees like frozen lace, and the road wound upward through dense forest. Jake felt that familiar excitement. He was chasing the season's first heavy snowfall, the kind photographers waited all year for. Untouched trails, clean light, silence. By late morning, they were hiking deeper into the trail system. Jake stopped often to take photos, kneeling in the snow, adjusting lenses with practiced ease. Rocky stayed nearby, ears twitching at distant sounds, eyes scanning the woods. Everything felt quiet, too quiet. Then the air changed. A gray fog rolled in suddenly, thick and heavy, swallowing the trees one by one. The visibility dropped fast. Jake checked his watch, then the sky. Something wasn't right. "All right, buddy," he said softly. "A couple more shots." That decision would haunt him. The fog thickened into chaos. Snow began falling hard and sideways, driven by rising wind. Within minutes, the trail disappeared. Markers vanished beneath fresh snow. The world shrank to a swirling white void. Jake stuffed his camera into his pack, hands already stiff with cold. "Come on, Rocky, time to go." They moved quickly, but urgency has a way of blinding even the careful. Jake stepped onto what looked like solid ground. It wasn't. His foot slid violently, his body twisted. Then came the sound, sharp, sickening, unmistakable. Crack. Pain ripped through his ankle as he slammed into the frozen ground. He tried to stand. His leg gave out instantly. Panic surged. The wind howled louder, stealing heat and sound alike. Rocky rushed to him, whining, circling, nose pressed to Jake's face. Jake's breathing grew shallow. Night was coming fast. The storm was worsening. He wrapped himself in his emergency blanket, the thin silver foil rattling uselessly in the wind. Then Rocky did something Jake hadn't taught him. The dog lay down tight against Jake's chest, pressing his full body into him, sharing warmth without moving. As the light faded and Jake's thoughts began to slow, one terrifying realization settled in. The mountain didn't care that the storm wasn't supposed to happen, and neither did time. The cold worked its way into Jake's body slowly at first, then all at once. It crept past the emergency blanket, past his jacket, past muscle and bone, until it settled deep in his core. His teeth chattered uncontrollably. Every breath felt heavier than the last. The pain in his ankle had dulled into something worse, numbness. That scared him more than the pain ever could. Rocky stayed pressed against him, unmoving except for the steady rise and fall of his chest. The dog's warmth was the only thing keeping Jake anchored to consciousness. Each time Jake's eyes closed for too long, Rocky nudged him with his nose, letting out a low whine. "I know, buddy. Jake murmured, his voice weak. "I'm here." But he wasn't sure how long that would be true. Jake forced himself to think. Panic would kill him faster than the cold. He checked his phone. No signal. The storm had swallowed the world. Visibility was gone. No one knew where he was. No one was coming anytime soon. Hypothermia wasn't dramatic like the movies. It didn't announce itself. It whispered. It made bad ideas feel reasonable. It told you to sleep. Jake clenched his jaw and fought it. His pack lay half buried in snow beside him. With stiff, shaking fingers, he unzipped it again, checking supplies. Camera gear, extra batteries, first aid kit, useless without the ability to move. Then his hand brushed against something bright. His hiking vest, blaze orange, high visibility, the kind search teams were trained to spot from a distance. An idea sparked, fragile, desperate, but real. Jake looked down at Rocky. The dog met his gaze immediately, eyes alert despite the storm. Rocky wasn't panicking. He was waiting. "Hey," Jake whispered, struggling to sit up. His vision blurred at the edges. "You remember the trail. You remember the car." Rocky's ears perked slightly. Jake pulled the vest free and held it in front of the dog's face. "Take this. Go find help." The wind howled as if mocking him, sending his dog into a blizzard when against every instinct he had. What if Rocky got lost? What if he didn't find anyone? What if this was the last decision Jake ever made? Rocky leaned forward and gently took the vest in his mouth, careful not to tear it. He didn't run right away. Instead, he looked at Jake, really looked at him, and whined softly. Jake swallowed hard. "Good boy," he said. "Go." For a moment, Rocky stayed frozen, torn between training and loyalty. Then instinct took over. He turned and disappeared into the swirling white, orange fabric flashing once before the storm swallowed him whole. Jake lay back against the snow, suddenly alone. The silence felt louder without Rocky's breathing beside him. The cold rushed in fast, aggressive, victorious. Jake closed his eyes for just a second, only a second, telling himself it was okay. Far away, beyond the wall of snow and darkness, Rocky ran with a single purpose, burning through the storm. Jake was still alive, and that meant he had to make it back. Rocky ran with his head low and his body angled into the wind, snow slamming against his face and chest. The storm was worse away from the trees, where gusts caught across the trail like invisible blades. But Rocky didn't slow. He followed the scent he knew, Jake's boots, their path from earlier, the familiar rhythm of the hike burned into memory. Training guided his body. Loyalty guided everything else. The trail was barely there now, buried beneath fresh snow. Markers were gone, shapes blurred together. But Rocky remembered turns, slopes, and the slight bend where Jake had stopped for photos. He moved fast, then slowed, checking, correcting. When the trail vanished completely, he dropped his nose and tracked by scent alone. Minutes stretched into miles. The parking area came into view at last. Empty. No cars, no people, just swirling snow and silence. Rocky paused, confused for the first time. He circled, sniffing desperately, searching for the comforting smell of humans. Nothing. Rocky didn't sit down. He didn't wait. He turned and ran again, down the mountain road, paws pounding against icy ground. The orange vest flapped from his mouth like a signal flag, bright against the storm. The wind howled, but Rocky's breathing stayed steady. He had been trained not to quit. More importantly, he had been trained to think. Lights appeared through the snowfall, faint, distant, real.
A small ranger station sat off the road, barely visible through the storm. Rocky veered toward it and barked, sharp, loud, urgent. Not his playful bark, not his warning bark, something different, something intentional. Inside, Ranger Thompson sat at his desk, finishing paperwork and listening to the storm batter the building. The barking cut through the noise, persistent and demanding. "Great," he muttered, standing. "Now what?" When he opened the door, the cold rushed in. A large German shepherd stood in the snow, eyes locked on him. The dog dropped an orange hiking vest at his feet, barked again, then turned and ran a few steps up the road before stopping and looking back. Thompson froze. This wasn't a lost dog. This was a message. "All right," he said slowly, grabbing his coat. "I see you." Rocky didn't wait for encouragement. He ran ahead, then doubled back, making sure the ranger followed. Within minutes, Thompson had 2 other rangers geared up, a snowmobile warming outside. Rocky led the way into the storm, running ahead, then stopping, then checking again, turn by turn, decision by decision. When they reached the trailhead, Rocky veered sharply off the path and into the trees without hesitation. "He's not guessing. He knows," one ranger said. They found Jake where Rocky had left him, half buried in snow, wrapped in silver foil, barely conscious. Rocky rushed to his side immediately, whining softly. As the rescue team worked fast to stabilize Jake, Ranger Thompson looked at the dog, shaking his head in disbelief. "He didn't just find help, he led us straight to him." And far beneath the storm clouds, time had almost run out, but not quite, because somewhere between instinct and love, Rocky had outrun the mountain itself.
The rescue team moved with practiced urgency. One ranger checked Jake's pulse, while another secured his injured ankle. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue, breath shallow and uneven. Hypothermia had tightened its grip, and it wasn't letting go easily. "Let's move," Ranger Thompson said. "Now." They lifted Jake carefully onto the snowmobile sled, shielding him from the wind as best they could. Rocky stayed close, pressing against Jake the moment there was space, whining softly as if reminding him to keep breathing. No one tried to pull the dog away. No one needed to. As the snowmobile roared to life and sped down the mountain, the storm continued to rage, but it no longer felt victorious. The machine cut through the snow, headlights piercing the white darkness. Every second mattered now, but hope rode with them. At the base, an ambulance waited, lights flashing like a beacon. Paramedics took over immediately, wrapping Jake in heated blankets, checking vitals, administering oxygen. Rocky tried to climb in after him. "It's okay, boy," one paramedic said gently, holding him back. "We've got him." Rocky sat down, eyes never leaving Jake as the doors closed. At the hospital, doctors worked through the night. Jake's core temperature was dangerously low. His ankle was fractured clean through. One doctor shook his head quietly and said what no one wanted to hear. "Another hour out there, maybe less, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Jake woke up the next morning under warm lights, confusion giving way to memory. Snow, pain, Rocky. "Where's my dog?" he croaked. "He's fine," a nurse said with a smile, "and he's the reason you're still here." Weeks later, Jake stood on crutches inside a small ranger station, the same one Rocky had found that night. The storm was long gone. Sunlight filtered through the windows. The local search and rescue team had gathered, relaxed but respectful. Rocky sat at Jake's side, tail thumping softly against the floor. The head ranger stepped forward with a folded bandana, bright orange, marked with bold letters,
SAR K9 Associate. He placed it gently around Rocky's neck, then handed Jake a certificate. "Your dog did everything a trained search dog would do," the ranger said. "He conserved your heat, he carried a visual marker, he tracked, alerted, and guided us back perfectly." He paused, then added, "You trained him well, but what he did out there, that came from here." He tapped his chest. Jake looked down at Rocky, throat tight. Rocky looked back, ears relaxed, eyes calm. No pride, no awareness of ceremony, just loyalty. Rocky wasn't thinking about survival stats or heroism. He hadn't acted for recognition or reward. He had done one simple thing, the only thing that mattered. He went back for his human. And even now, long after the snow had melted and the mountain had moved on, one quiet truth remained. Some heroes never realized they were heroes at all.
Winter loosened its grip on the Cascades slowly. Snow melted into streams, and the trails near Mount Baker reopened, scarred but familiar. Life returned to its rhythm, but for Jake, nothing felt the same. Recovery had been long. The fracture healed cleanly, but the experience lingered in quieter ways. Cold air made him pause. Sudden fog made his chest tighten. He didn't rush the mountains anymore. He listened to them. He waited. Rocky never changed. The German shepherd still woke up early, still watched Jake with the same calm focus, still leaned against him whenever they sat together. If anything, Rocky stayed closer now, always aware, always present. Not protective in a dramatic way, just certain. Months later, Jake returned to the same trail. The sky was clear, the forecast solid. But Jake moved slowly, deliberately. His camera stayed in the pack longer this time. Rocky walked ahead, then stopped, turned, and waited, just like he had that day. Jake smiled. "Yeah," he said softly, "I know." They didn't go far. They didn't need to. At home, the story spread. Local papers picked it up, then regional outlets. Reporters called Rocky a hero dog. Search and rescue teams used the story in training sessions. People Jake had never met stopped him to shake his hand. Rocky accepted none of it. He hated cameras pointed at his face. He tolerated the bandana for about 10 minutes before trying to chew it off. Treats mattered. Long walks mattered. Being near Jake mattered. One afternoon, Jake received a letter from the ranger station. Inside was a photo taken the night of the rescue, grainy, snow-filled, barely clear. In it, Rocky stood beside the snowmobile, ears back, eyes fixed forward, guarding Jake even as medics worked. On the back, Ranger Thompson had written one sentence. "Some dogs are trained to search. This one chose to." Jake framed it and hung it by the door. Years later, when Rocky's muzzle finally turned gray and his pace slowed, they still hiked. Shorter trails, safer routes. Jake always packed extra gear now. 2 emergency blankets, 2 vests. Sometimes when the wind shifted just right, Jake would stop and feel the memory of that night. The cold, the fear, the silence. And always, the warmth. He would look down at Rocky and scratch behind his ears. "You saved my life," he'd say. Rocky would thump his tail once, unimpressed. Because in Rocky's world, there was no rescue, no ceremony, no heroism. There was only this. Jake was his human. And when his human needed him, he went. The mountain remembered the storm. The rangers remembered the dog. But Jake remembered something deeper. That loyalty, once proven in the dark, never fades in the light.